It's still Saturday, February 7th. I just spoke for like an hour about the Shaman of the Amazon song, but I figured I'll just keep going since it's fresh in my head now. But I'm not going to speak as much about this one because there really isn't too much to talk about this song. I already mentioned it in the previous one that it's a return of the information overload is song number 8, and it goes back to the trippy psychedelic type of flavor. This one I would like to make more as like an Indian raga type of song with that type of feeling, crazy sitar playing and that good stuff like that. I do like Indian music a lot. I just haven't listened to it recently. It was in my head when I was writing this. This one, as part of the story, so Willie in the last episode goes to the Amazon, the last song, he goes to the Amazon to kind of find enlightenment or help from someone, and he kind of communes with the spirits of the jungle. That's the shaman of the Amazon. In this song, he comes back and he realizes that his spiritual quest didn't really work. It seemed like it didn't work, so he goes back to the comedy club that he got kicked out of. And he goes up on the stage to criticize all the violent side of society, and people are still booing him and hating on him. Whoever's left to appreciate comedy at that point. So he goes on to into this long speech about, you know, his failure, I guess. And then his frustration through comedy, maybe, or just through some long rant. I'm instantly reminded of the Garrity rant I wrote. I wrote a screenplay called Garrity, and towards the end of it, I wrote like a 3-page rant that the guy talks on air when he's having like his freak out mental breakdown. So maybe it's similar to that if I could conjure those voices again, because that one just came out like crazy. Of all the stuff I've written in terms of screenplays, that might be my most proud rant because it just goes on for like 3 pages, and I just picture the person going nuts like Howard Beale on Network did. And it's just a bit trippier than the movie Network. So Willie is on the comedy stage. He's kind of at that point where he thinks he failed in his mission, or he doesn't even know what his mission was. He's just venting all his frustrations. And when he's finished, he kind of evaporates into electric waves, and he just kind of vanishes into thin air. Like his body just disappears. And in addition to that, like he sucks in all the other waves, like television signals, radio waves, 5G, internet services, cell phone towers, all that stuff. All that stuff like kind of comes with him into whatever part of the metaverse that he evaporates into. Yeah, I'm kind of copying a little bit, and I spoke about this before. There's a movie called Lucy with Scarlett Johansson, and in that movie, that kind of happens to her. She becomes like some superhuman entity inside of her body. Her body evolves like, and she starts using different parts of her brain. I was going to say, that famous line that people only use 10% of their brain or whatever that is. But I don't think that's true. I think that's a myth that it's just that people cannot use all sections of their brain at once or something. And in the movie, kind of like that Bradley Cooper movie where he takes the medicine that makes him learn quicker and become some almost like a superhuman brain powered dude. In Lucy, Scarlett Johansson, yeah, does that too. Her body and her mind evolve almost like a artificial intelligence. I think that was the point of that movie, Lucy, and it's from like a decade ago. But artificial intelligence has been around since the 60s, like that science fiction element of it, whether it was people like Philip K. Dick writing about it or other science fiction writers. It's always been an element. I, Robot, that was like from whatever year. When was I, Robot written? I'm going to say the 60s. I put I, Root. I, Robot. Isaac Asimov. He wrote that between 1940 and 1950. So even before that, people were talking about artificial intelligence and the dehumanization of workers and human ingenuity, human creativity. That's always been in the science fiction sphere, even going back to Stanley Kubrick stuff. Isaac Asimov, which I never read this book, but he wrote I, Robot between 1940 and 1950. So it's always been an element. Science fiction today kind of just rehashes the same types of metaphors in different ways. But I like that movie a lot, Lucy, with Scarlett Johansson, some other people. It's a really fast-paced science fiction type of movie. I liked it a lot. Watched it a couple times. And that's kind of probably where I got the inspiration to kind of go in that direction with this story. And so it's pretty much like we're going back to an age of human civilization where communication was not through television or radio or internet. Communication was just word of mouth. Like, really think about that. Think about that. People who are in their teenage years right now, in their 20s, if you had to communicate with people, but you didn't have a cell phone, you didn't have the ability to have a cell phone, there's no cell towers, they all magically disappear overnight. So you can't use your cell phone to communicate with people. You can't use a regular telephone, landline. You can't use radio to get information. You can't use television to get information. How do you know what the truth is? Who's telling you the truth? Where do you get that information? You get it at town square? Like, just think about that, how crazy it sounds, because nobody, well, in my generation, we didn't have cell phones as teenagers, but we had telephones. We had internet, early 90s, mid 90s. There were so many different forms of communication advancing at a rapid degree. But yeah, before the 1900s, before radio, like before the telephone, just go back to that age. That's kind of where this is going, I guess, this song. Is it better or worse? I don't know. That's everyone would have a different opinion about that. Some people do want to go back to that. Get rid of the television or internet because that brings the devil into your house. There's people who do believe in stuff like that. Get rid of the information that the government wants you to see every day. If you don't have the television, that totally negates that form of propaganda, that form of media manipulation. Before the television, yeah, cable news, it was a totally different fifth estate, if you want to call journalism the fifth estate of American politics or government. It was just newspapers, really, that's all. Every newspaper had its own angle and their own manipulation, but that's all it was back then. It's just an interesting thought experiment. Were people happier back then? Were people more easily manipulated back then? Were people more intelligent? Were people just like, all right, let's just ignore this? Like some people want to do now, just ignore social media completely, ignore cable news. People back then, I guess it was easier if they want to live off the grid because everyone was off the grid. Like before electricity, there was no grid. Everyone lived off the grid. So it's an interesting thought experiment. How would you survive in a world like that? It's a different form of communication completely. There's like very little contact with other countries. You're not going to know what's really going on in the world. But again, do you really trust what the news is telling you 100%? If you go to another country, it'll be a different narrative completely than what you hear living in New Jersey or United States. So, yeah, it all depends on what culture you live in and stuff like that. Everything's going to be slanted, how the government wants to slant things, or different forces, corporations, wherever those interests can pay for, they could get their message across to millions of people very quickly. So it's a totally different environment now, and it's not new. It's been like this for decades, at least in terms of the internet. But cable news, really, I guess the late 80s into the 90s, it really exploded with 24-hour cable news. And yeah, I always go down these. I said it earlier that I don't have any new ideas, man. And it's kind of a really bad criticism of myself. Like I just go down the same, like I'm being trapped in these same boring paradigms where I don't really care about this stuff, but it's just constantly, I should write about this. I should write about this. Why am I writing about this over and over again? I have those debates, but it's like, I don't care. At least I'm writing something. So I kind of just justify it like that. But I did have that realization that yesterday, especially, like I have nothing new to write about. And I'm like, I need more new life experiences to change perspectives on, because you're constantly doing that, or you should be doing that. It might not always be beneficial. It might make your worldview look very bad if you go down different perceptions, different perspectives of other people. You might come out looking really bad at the end, but it can only improve you as a person, as an individual, or as more of a cultural tribal thing. So if you take away the ego and fear of death and all those elements that are a part of the ego, then you can more honestly have that conversation with people. But it's hard to do that because not many people converse like that. There's always like a subtle, I don't even want to, I use the word manipulation way too much. I need to find different words to use besides manipulation because I use that word millions of times. Whatever, you know what I mean though. There's a form of language that people aren't always speaking straightforward. There's like more wishy-washy language because they're afraid to say something or for people to take things out of context or to infer things that aren't even there. Like there's that level of language that I never had to deal with until like, I don't know, not too long ago, 6 years ago. That was more in my head, that I have to be careful what I write or say because somebody might take it the wrong way. That's a bad way to think, in my opinion. Like, I don't want to offend people, but if you're afraid to express yourself through language or art or whatever, I'm almost like always against that type of mentality. Like again, I'm going down the censorship angle, which I go down every conversation I have because it's like always in the public mind meld of censorship because that's how the political spectrum is today. People don't want to have conversations. They just want to pick a team and base their beliefs on that. And this is what I'm going with. And yeah, it's tough to live like that. Well, maybe it's easy to live like that because you're not questioning things. You're just saying, this is what I'm going with. This is the story that I'm going with. This is the story that my tribe decided to go with. And the conversation just kind of ends there. Maybe it is easier to live like that. But whatever, that's kind of where this song is going. Return of the Information Overload is the title of this song. All it means is that really I'm just regurgitating the same themes I've had before. So I'm almost like doing the meta thing where in this song I'm speaking of exactly what I'm speaking of right now. That I don't have any new ideas. I'm just going down the same rabbit holes. They're not even rabbit holes. The same political discussions that I have with myself all the time. And, you could have fun with it. Am I really saying anything new? Not really. But I'm just trying to put a new spin or create a different environment, a different story, a different universe where these thoughts can exist. And I guess I'll talk about that now. Like, this story is kind of going very science fiction-y at the end. There's 2 songs left after this. So right now, Willie the vegan, he kind of evaporates in the thin air. Very comic book type of art that I see in my head for this type of song, this type of story, this type of moment in the story. And he kind of vanishes in the thin air, and with him comes all the radio waves, television signals. So the world is back to no communication, no internet, no television, no radio. I guess people could still write, so I'm not going to say no newspapers, because people could always write. If they have to go back to papyrus, they'll go back to that. Like, what if every copy of the Bible got destroyed? Does anyone know it by heart? Somebody must. There must be some priest or nun, missionary that knows the entire Bible by heart, because that's how they used to do it, right? Like oral tradition. Before they had the printing press, people would just dictate Bible stories to one another from generation to generation, like the telephone game. Maybe that's why there's some contradictions over time, because people misinterpret stuff or omit certain things. Well, of course, yeah. Every time the Bible got created, or they had the councils to reform the Bible and stuff, like, yeah, people would decide what goes in and what doesn't go in. Whatever, bishops and more powerful clergy people. Like, I always go back to the Bible because that's the only book I've really grew up with. I never read the Quran. I guess the Torah is kind of like the Old Testament, but I never really, it's a part of it, right? The Torah is the Jewish thing, is more just the Old Testament, right? I think that's what it is, like the first 5 books, right? The Torah is the first. I think that's what it is, right? The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, yeah. So I probably read some of those books. I can't really remember Leviticus, Numbers, or Deuteronomy. Like, I can't tell you anything in any of those books. But yeah, I think most people read Genesis and Exodus, and they maybe continue. But yeah, I never really got in depth with any of this stuff. I always talk about the Bible just because that's what I grew up with. But if you're a different religion, you could just put your own heritage in there and have that same thought experiment. If all that stuff disappeared, what would your society look like? Because that is crazy. People had to pass that stuff down word of mouth before the printing press and before anything else. Like, a lot of that was just spoken word stuff, right? Or am I just making that up? But whatever. It's an interesting type of thought experiment. If all these, not even in terms of convenience, I'm looking at modern technology more as a form of communication on a global scale. So you can communicate with people right now in Australia or maybe not North Korea. Maybe North Korea is the one place you can't just talk to some citizen in North Korea through the internet, through some chat program or whatever, where people can chat through video games. Like, you're playing Call of Duty with like some people from like Siberia or something through, um, playing online and stuff. It's crazy how easy it is to interact with people all over the world and have like a global conversation kind of for anyone, like not just people in power, people in corporations who have meetings like G8 stuff or United Nations. Like anyone could just talk to anybody. And that's probably taken for granted, but um, I guess there's a good and bad side to it. And again, I've talked about this over and over again during COVID times about how people can manipulate information on social media and do stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff, man. But I don't feel the need to really rehash that side of it because, yeah, I've talked about that to death. And that's basically what this song's about. Where is this story going after this? I said I would spoil it a little. I'm kind of setting up Willie the Vegan as like almost like an alien consciousness again. Maybe he wasn't even aware of it, but he was sent to Earth to kind of study the human condition. And towards the end, he's just left like, I don't know what to make of all this chaos. Maybe that's just how people need to exist in a chaotic frame of mind like that. And yeah, I'll just get to the story. There's only two songs after this, and the last song really isn't a part of the story. Or I'll save it. I'll save it. It's really not that novel of a concept anyway. So yeah, there is a science fiction element to this story because I really didn't know how to end this nonsense. I really didn't know where to go with this, so I'm always just like, just go to like a science fiction place and you can make up whatever the hell you want. So it's easier, kind of almost like a cop out or some cliche. All right, that kind of makes sense. I don't know if I used the word cop out correctly. Cop out is like a way to avoid responsibility or commitment. So yeah, it's kind of like that. I was having difficulty ending this story, so I just went to science fiction again, which is probably the easiest way because anything's possible when you go into that type of storytelling. Like anything is possible with science fiction. Like people, I kind of get like weirded out when people get all crazy. Like Interstellar, man, that was not scientifically accurate. Then you have Neil deGrasse Tyson, who, yeah, I love that dude too. But he's always like debunking science fiction. Like, dude, it's science fiction. Like everyone knows Planet of the Apes, it's not based on like real history or real science, whatever. I guess it's just, is it possible that apes could evolve and form a society? Sure, I guess that's possible on some other planet or Earth, but whatever. When you go down science fiction, it opens a door for any kind of anything you can imagine. So it's a cool way to do things, or it's just a cop out. Yeah, you're just like, I don't know how to end this thing. Make it about aliens, or make it about ghosts and all that crazy stuff. And then yeah, it's a believable ending because you said so. It's your own universe. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this story because, well, I said it in the beginning too. I didn't want it to look like human beings when I was drawing the beginning pictures of this. I really haven't worked on drawing the pictures, just maybe like two or three at the moment. But I was like, I don't want it to be anything to do with human civilization in terms of the aesthetics and how the characters look. So I was already going down that angle, and that's kind of why I ended up there too. But I'm going to pause this because I forget how the song goes in terms of the music. Let me pause it so I don't have a lot of dead air, and I'll try to remember how the song melodies go. The more I look at these lyrics, I only looked at them for a couple minutes. I hear Indian type raga music, but it's like the Beatles song. The Beatles kind of made some Indian music, but it's based on that same type of Eastern music, those scales and stuff. But in my head, automatically, I hear like that Beatles type of Indian music. Because I did expand Indian music more than any other, maybe, because it is very interesting to me. There's a spiritual quality to Indian raga stuff that's pretty addicting. I haven't gone down there lately, but maybe a few months ago, that was like all wanted to listen to. But I still like it. I just haven't listened to it much lately. So you have to picture this as kind of an Indian inspired song because Indian music to me has a natural type of psychedelic feel to it. Maybe because the only Indian music I heard as a kid or as a teenager or later in life was the Beatles, the off Revolver and whatever else that song was. And yeah, the Beatles did pretty cool. I think their songs are really amazing. Actually, the few songs that the Beatles did in that type of atmosphere, of based on Indian music, yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with it because they didn't try to fake it. They actually like went to India, right, and they tried to learn all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So I'll try to sing this really quickly here. Verse 1. It's only 4 lines. Time for the darker side. Wise enough to spare the right. What good was this life? What worth was this fight? So yeah, I'm trying to hear like the sitar music going as I'm singing this. And in between these verses, because this song only has 2 verses, I would have pretty long instrumentals of just. To me, that's the beauty of Indian music. I don't care about the singing and chanting as much, even though that could be cool. I just like the trippy sitar stuff, and it's so technically amazing to me. It's not like I don't like the chanting though, because there's a couple Indian inspired chants that I really got into. I ended my first book with like one of them. Um, it's some kind of mantra that just is so addicting when I listen to it. The second verse is also just 4 lines. Sign of the angels, maybe antlers on fables. What song would suffice? Whose vision decides? And yeah, you would just go into some sitar stuff after that too. I feel like maybe the reason I like Indian music is there's so much space to play with. It doesn't rush anything. It just kind of flows as it flows. It doesn't try to interrupt the music. Sometimes Western music, maybe it's too structured because you're trying to fit it into a commercial radio, which already is going to affect the artistic integrity of something. If you're like, this song can only be 3 minutes and 20 seconds, you're already taking away some of the magic of creation. Like, you're not letting it organically flow because you're trying to put a song structure to these ideas and melodies. Not to say it can't work too, because people become so proficient at creating songs with the verse, chorus, bridge, ending, and they get so good at it that it's like, wow, I could never do that. It becomes so formulaic that it can become almost like it seems like it's natural because you sit down and you try to write a song that's following that blueprint of verse, chorus, verse, whatever it is, of a typical pop song on the radio or a country song on the radio or a rap song on the radio with auto tune, or country music with, they even use vocal effects sometimes, like modern country music. But even going back to old country music, like there was a blueprint for these types of songs, and because people got so good at it, session musicians, they're just so professional, and songwriters, they become so good at it that it does sound natural and organic. But ideally, yeah, Indian music is completely, to me at least, it's completely in opposition to that, where you just want to zone out, listen to someone play raga music or whatever they're doing, whatever tradition, for like 20, 30 minutes. There's no interruptions. There's no, like, I don't want to say there's no structure to it, because there's definitely a structure to it. Like raga is crazy structure. There's so many different types. You have to learn all these things as a musician. So it's a different type of structure that's more open and spiritual, whatever you want to, whatever you think spiritual means, because I don't know what it means. I don't even know what it really means to myself. It just means existing in some different level of consciousness that nobody really understands. Whether you get there through praying or meditating or doing yoga or doing something else, it's that level of consciousness where it feels like something else is guiding you, or something else is, you're realizing, you're remembering how large the universe is, and all your ego stuff is so stupid. And you're able to just come to peace with that again, because you forgot last time you already had that realization, but then the ego came back and said, no, you have to do this. You have to make all this money before you reach this age. You need to do this, be married with 2 kids, or you're not living a normal life. You got to do this or that, or like, that's the ego that always creeps back into your head, that you're just killing constantly. If you just want to exist on a plane of higher consciousness where it's not about you or your alleged goals or your alleged successes and all that stuff. All that stuff's important, yeah. Like, it's fine to have that structure and security in your life, but it's like, I think the people, whatever your tradition is, people that go to church or find spirituality some other way, it's like to get away from that stuff, because that stuff can become a form of almost like an inner claustrophobic type of feeling, like the walls are closing in. It's that type of feeling you get sometimes. Again, that's why Indian music's cool to me, because it's the opposite of that. Put on anything, just type in Indian music on Spotify, whatever comes up first, and it'll probably take you on a different type of trip without the use of drugs or anything. So that's basically where I'm trying to go with this song. And it fits too, because Indian music is specifically, or types of music in that mode, which I believe it is naturally just psychedelic, or whatever word you want to put there. Psychedelic is like a form of spirituality, I think, if it's used to, as people say that they use it as. Like DMT is called like the God, whatever it is. Right? Isn't DMT called something like that? Like the God pill or whatever. It's not a pill. The God molecule? Yeah, the God molecule. DMT, which I only heard of because of like Joe Rogan podcast and some other stuff. Hamilton Morris and that Terrence McKenna guy, which I learned from Joe Rogan. It's something that's actually inside of our bodies too. Like, but there has to be some kind of a reaction to make it work, I think. I forget, man. I don't remember how it really works, but it's like a short trip. Like people take LSD and it seems like they're gone for like a couple months. Well, maybe it's like an 8 hour trip, a 3 hour tour. But DMT is like a 10-minute trip. It's like you take this, whatever it is, liquid, or I'm not sure how you really take it. I forget. But people, or you smoke it, or I don't know what it is. I really don't know. But supposedly DMT exists within our brain already. Because Terrence McKenna had some quote like everyone's carrying because it's inside of our bodies already. It exists, but it's like it's not. DMT is produced within the human body, but it doesn't take you on a psychoactive thing, supposedly, from reading this. It is produced naturally inside every single human body. I guess that's why they call it a God molecule, but I'm going off topic again. I don't even know why I'm talking about this stuff, but yeah, because psychedelics is a form of spirituality for a lot of people. And yeah, I don't know. I forget. I did watch that documentary where people take DMT and it looks like, yeah, they're completely on some other planet, dude. It's very weird, interesting, and I don't want to talk bad or good about it because I never did it. I never did it. So I can't give a personal anecdote or personal story about it. How do you? So yeah, I don't know. I'm just repeating what I hear other people say. So you can drink it, you can snort it, you can inject it, or you can vaporize it or smoke it in a pipe. So I don't know. And I think it only takes you on a trip for like 10 minutes. Like it's some weird drug like that. I believe that's what I remember. Yeah, it could take like 10 minutes. There's certain DMT experiences. You could get visions and body distortions. But it only lasts for like 5 to 10 minutes. That's like crazy to me. And then you're back on planet Earth again. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's very unknown. It goes back to the shamanism thing. Like maybe it's a part of that in some cultures, like the ayahuasca I mentioned. Uh, Back to the lyrics of this one. There's a brief chorus after the two verses, and after some instrumentals. Return of duality, the burn of the mark disease, information overload, somehow fervently relieved. Like, I'm just improvising these words completely. I don't think I ever decided on how I would sing this. So, again, it's back to the element of improvisation, especially with a song like this, that you just go with the flow and sing it how it fits the mood or whatever. After that chorus, you could go back to an instrumental. So this might be the longest song I'm thinking because of all the instrumentals I hear in my head for this one. There's a bridge to this, to a bridge, and kind of goes into the outro of this song. But who are you really? And who am I to worry? A business failed, a love derailed. Waking up might be the only cure. But don't look to me for that off-bottled sanity. Nobody asked you anyway. They'd rather sway the audience. Shut your eyes to view the prize. Walk the plank until the roar repays. Dreams aren't fueled by the echo's fate. Until the universe resets the pace. So I called that the bridge, but it's kind of just like another verse almost. But I just termed it the bridge because it's a little bit longer than the other ones. I'm trying to picture the Indian type of vibe, which is why I'm singing it kind of low because I don't really know how it would go yet. And the outro to this song is just the simple phrase, maybe antlers on fables, maybe antlers on fables. I don't really know what that means. I just thought it sounded cool. And I always had a fascination with deer. Like I think deer is like my spiritual spirit animal. I like deer a lot. And not to eat. I don't think I've ever had deer meat. Well, I don't eat meat or any animal stuff, but in the past I don't think I ever had venison. I've eaten rabbit in the past, like way back, but I don't know what deer meat's like. I think it's kind of good though, kind of lean. But yeah, because I'm a vegan, I don't care if people eat meat. Like I got no issue with it at all. It's just what I'm doing. I never try to convert people or anything like that because that's kind of what people get sometimes from people who are vegan. Like they want to try to convert people or something. Like nah, I I barely even discuss my diet with people because it's like it's not a big part of my life really. With strangers, but I'm never in that situation where somebody like invites me to eat because I don't go to restaurants, so it never comes up in conversation really. So that's basically what this song is. It's the blueprint is there. A song like this, I've never tried to write really Indian raga music. So yeah, man, it's just like when I try to write, or I think a song is like a jazzy song. I don't know how to play that stuff, but I know it when I hear it. If a group of musicians would do it, then I'd be like, yeah, that's what I'm going for, and that's how the song would form, at least in my delusional mind. I'm in a recording studio or my own studio, and other people would play these parts, and it would just come together like that. So yeah, this one's cool. I like this song a lot, actually. It's different. It's kind of a maybe the one outlier on this album that's different than all the other ones. It would be like the one Indian type song, completely Indian inspired. Because to me, yeah, I'm speaking of shamanism, I'm speaking of all these spiritual psychedelic things, and Indian music fits that so perfectly. So it's almost like inevitable that I will go that direction. And the quote again, I'm ending every song on this album with a narrator. I hear Morgan Freeman all the time. Whenever I have a narrator or voiceover, I always think of Morgan Freeman's voice. But it's a quote from Vincent de Paul. And I pick like religious people a lot on this. John Woolman, he was like a Quaker missionary. I wouldn't consider Thomas Paine a religious leader, but he's a philosopher. That's kind of similar. And maybe I picked some other ones. I used a quote from the book of Proverbs. So this is Vincent de Paul. I was supposed to read his book too, but I never got into it yet. But I searched for a good quote. I just skimmed through some of the chapters, and I like this quote a lot. It kind of portrays that same thing that this whole album is going for, like that constant searching. So this is Vincent de Paul from one of his books. His quote: I am not a man, but a poor worm crawling along the earth, not knowing where I am going, but seeking only to hide myself in you, O God. Yeah, I just thought that was a cool image because that's kind of what it is. That's kind of what life is. You're like a worm crawling to find some truth or find some peace and security. Some people find it, some people don't. And then everybody is worm food at the end anyway. So the worm thing fits perfectly. Like, uh, I remember as a kid playing with worms. Like, there's just the worms are like the whole basis of fertile land, right? If you're trying to terraform like land that doesn't grow anything, whatever that's called, desert land or land that's just arid and doesn't grow vegetables. I think people actually do that. Like they'll put worms in the ground to start the life process. Worms are almost like the beginning of life, and at the end of life, they'll consume human bodies, right? Or other insects will put your body back into the earth. There's a spiritual quality to that. It's pretty cool. Even if you're buried in a fancy casket, I guess the worms will get in at some point. But yeah, I guess that's why people did that. A lot of cultures just bury their bodies underneath the earth, like back to the earth. That's like a Bible quote, isn't it? Like ashes to ashes. But I don't know if cremation is considered legitimate in a lot of religions. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just think that's a cool image. You're comparing man, well, he says man, but of course, man or woman, their quest to find some deeper meaning or enlightenment and to just put all the noise aside, which is the theme of this entire album, really. Like, that's probably why I picked this quote. And I am not a man, but a poor worm crawling along the earth. That's just, I don't know, it's a simple image, but it just stands out because that's kind of like what humanity is. Not knowing where I am going, but seeking only to hide myself in you, oh God. So, yeah, there's a comfort in religion. There's a comfort in spirituality, whether, however you do that. If you can find peace in whatever your culture does, then yeah, it's not a bad thing. So yeah, even though this one went the science fiction route, maybe that was like the interesting. What's the word I'm thinking of? Juxtaposition. That I could set this story as a science fiction plot, but I could also put some religious elements into it. The quotes at the bottom. Lately, they've been kind of religious based. Even the Thomas Paine one, even if Thomas Paine criticized religion, his quote was about how only the fool would go about life as if there were no God. And I don't want to speak for him, but what I get from that quote is the ego thing. Like, if you go through life thinking that you're the center of the universe, like some people will do that. You don't have to form a cult to have that megalomania. Megalomania just means what? You think like you're the center of the universe or whatever. Probably, yeah, you want to dominate other people. That's the definition is basically obsession with power, especially to dominate other people. But there's a feeling of omnipotence and grandeur. So yeah, it is like you consider yourself some godlike entity. So yeah, I get what he's saying. The humble, being humble is almost the key to living um, a stress free existence because you're not putting yourself up on that pedestal. You're just another worm crawling the earth. Or people like to say, I'm just a worker bee. That's above my pay grade. People use that cliche all the time. I'm just a worker bee, man. Don't come to me for liability issues. So yeah, that all plays into the themes to this song especially. Because again, these are not new concepts. I just keep repeating kind of the same things. Like I'm getting that realization. I said like I need fresh ideas or something new. Because when I first started this album, I was like, yeah, this is totally out there, new experience. And then I get to writing the actual story and the actual lyrics, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of just repeating myself again and again. So it gets kind of tired too. But yeah, that's song 8. I guess I'll cut it here. I don't know if I want to do the rest of it today or wait until tomorrow to finish the last two songs. 'Cause I just spoke for 2 hours. I don't know if I can do another 2 hours and come up with new ideas to talk about. So I'll probably wait to do the last two. But that's song 8, and it's definitely influenced by Indian music. So I'll try to link some Indian music that, just like I did with the blues songs, like 10 Indian artists or songs that got me into Indian music. And I'm going to have to put the Beatles on there. Like the first time I heard a sitar was probably from the Beatles song. Um, the one, I'll make love to you if you want me to. That one. If you want me to. Do, 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 do. It's such an addicting melody. I can't think of this song. Yeah, it's just called Love You Too. Yeah, it's on Revolver or Yellow Submarine from 1966 by George Harrison. Yeah, I guess George Harrison was more of the Indian lover because he did a lot of Indian stuff later too, right? With like Ravi Shankar, right? I think. But yeah, that's a really catchy song. I really love that song. Um, yeah, I think it was on Revolver, but whatever. Sometimes it's like on two different albums or something, or different releases. And there's the other one too. Relax your mind and float downstream. This is not living. So yeah, the Beatles have a couple Indian-inspired songs, and yeah, I'll try to make a short playlist of 10 songs that got me into Indian music more than because I would say I never got into different cultures that much as Indian music. Like around 2021, I was like, if February is Black History Month, what about if I pick a different culture to celebrate every month? So February, I would listen to a bunch of like African American stuff, and then March it would be Irish because of St. Patrick's Day, and then April would be whatever. But I never followed up with it. But the only type of music I really got into I would say Indian music more than anything, because I don't know like Egyptian or Chinese. I have no idea what people listen to in certain countries, even like Brazil or like South American flavor stuff. I listen to some of it, but I don't know enough about that type of music. Or like I'm just thinking of foreign countries with different languages, African music, like tribal African beat stuff. Like I don't know that stuff, but I really got into Indian music, and there might be a connection to like even African and India. Maybe there is like some similarities, but I feel like African music is more just based on rhythm and drumming. Indian music is more spacey to me. Like you just get lost in the atmosphere of it, and maybe that's why it drew me in because I was getting into ambient music, and there's a connection with that. A lot of ambient artists started their own music because they studied Indian music and stuff like that. So there's a connection there too. But yeah, that's all I got for this one. I think I explained pretty much everything about the inspiration, the themes, the instrumentation, what I'm hearing in my head, and what the lyrics kind of mean. I kind of went down all these things in detail, so I think that's everything for this one.